shortly be arriving at Stalybridge.
Hello from Stalybridge in Greater Manchester and welcome to episode 3, part 1 of Exploring Secrets of the Huddersfield Line. We're not going to address the fact it is now January 2024 when I'm filming this and it's been 6 months. We're going to have to just try our best with this audio announcement, but we'll get there. So anyway, if you've not seen episodes 1 and 2, let's have a quick recap of what the route entails. In episode 1 we explore the stations from Leeds to Ravensthorpe with a quick mention of the new White Road station and look at the old platforms at Morley. Episode 2 part 1 saw me exploring Mirfield, Deaton, Huddersfield and Slough. Episode 2 part 2 covered Marston, the Stanedge Tunnel, through to Greenfield and Mossley. Links to those episodes are down below in the description. And in this episode, episode 3 part 1, we'll be covering Stalybridge and Ashton-Under-Lyne. Episode 3 part 2 will now be focusing on just Manchester Victoria. And finally, episode 4 parts 1, 2 and 3 we're going into a deep dive of each of the 3 remaining stations, which are Deansgate, Manchester Oxford Road and Manchester Piccadilly. So without further ado, let's explore some of the secrets of Stalybridge. So in the space of filming the last clip, the heavens have decided to open on me. It's January, it's winter, it's England, it's expected, we're just going to have to get on with it. Stalybridge station opened in 1845 as 2 separate stations, one for the Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway and one for the Manchester, Ashton-Under-Lyne and Sheffield Railway. Probably got the wrong way around, but there's a lot of names there to remember. Anyway, the Manchester, Ashton and the Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway station was on the northern end where platforms 4 and 5 are today, and the Manchester, Ashton-Under-Lyne and Sheffield Railway was where platforms 1, 2 and 3 are today. So the Manchester, Ashton-Under-Lyne and Sheffield Railway built their line from Guybridge to Stalybridge, which is more commonly used today to divert services through to Manchester Piccadilly instead of going through Manchester Victoria. We'll get onto that a little bit later in this episode as to why that line is more commonly used nowadays. So if we rewind back to the start of the episode, because shortly after leaving Mossley, you will pass through the 185 metre Scout Tunnel. Then on the approach into Stalybridge, you will pass through the 611 metre Stalybridge Tunnel, which is then shortly followed by the Stalybridge Viaduct on the approach to the station.
We are sorry that the 0937 this train is currently between Marsden and Greenfield.
Stockport is not Stockport, but Stalybridge. Stalybridge is also home to the Stockport and Stalybridge Parliamentary train service, which only runs once a week on a Saturday morning. That could have changed with timetable, but usually it runs on a Saturday morning, which used to be quite popular back in the late 70s and 80s. The reason it's like that is so it can keep a running service, as it is cheaper to keep trains running than closing an entire railway. It allowed, back in the day, for people coming up from London to get off at Stockport and change and get the Parliamentary train from Stockport. Well, it wasn't Parliamentary then, but get the train from Stockport up to Stalybridge and then join onto the Huddersfield line here to get over to Leeds. Which in effect really could just come up to London and go up to Leeds that way, which is quicker, but the option was there back in the day. As you have to remember, at this time there was no real connection between Manchester Piccadilly and Victoria. That wouldn't come until 2017. So stood here on platform 3 at Stalybridge, you can see behind me is platform 4 and 5, which is the Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway part of Stalybridge. As you can see in the bay platform is a northern train waiting to go through to Southport, stopping at Ashton and Manchester Victoria and all the stations in between. I could listen, but I'm not going to. We're going to be on that train in a little bit, going to Ashton. Anyway, the point being is, it is also served by 2 TP trains an hour, running fast through to Manchester Victoria, which is more known on the Liverpool trains and the airport trains at the moment. Now, if you stand at the eastern end of Stalybridge on platforms 1 and 2, you might notice that the junction and viaduct have more space for more tracks. Well, in fact, I forgot to mention in episode 2 part 2 that there's no railway line that ran parallel to the Huddersfield line between here and the Stalybridge Tunnel. Prior to the beaching cuts in the 60s, there was an 8-mile railway called the Micklehurst Loop Line, opened by the LNWR in May 1886, which branched off the main line shortly after Stanage and the former Dougal station, as you can see here in this clip from July 1968, where you can see the remains of the old line that closed in October 1966. The line ran on the eastern side of the Thames Valley, being about a mile apart from the Huddersfield line, and added an additional 4 stations which were Upper Mill, Friesland, Micklehurst and Staley Millbrook, before rejoining the line through a separate tunnel at Stalybridge. Unfortunately, due to the Thames Valley being lightly populated in the 1900s and low passenger numbers, Micklehurst was closed to passengers in May 1907, Staley Millbrook in November 1909, and finally Upper Mill and Friesland in January 1917. The station building at Upper Mill is still intact, and you can enjoy a walk along the path that runs along the old alignment from Upper Mill to Friesland. If you head south, you'll come across the Tubebrook River, and yes, I even managed to find some water in this video. On the left is the site of the old Greenfield Viaduct, formerly known as the Friesland Viaduct. As you walk up the steep bank, you'll come across the old Friesland station building, which appears abandoned and has an old sign on the gate indicating its history. After the line closed in October 1966, the tracks remained in place until around 1970, when they were then finally removed. The Greenfield and Friesland viaducts were then demolished in June 1975. As you move along the line towards Mossley, you'll come across the old Micklehurst station, which has replica signs displaying the station's name. However, at the last station, Staley Millbrook, there's nothing left except for empty space and signs of fire tipping where the building once stood. The path beyond this point will have continued onto Stalybridge. And that was a very quick detour into the secrets of the Micklehurst line. Right, let's get on with more facts of Stalybridge. So the study here on platform 3 at Stalybridge, this is the junction behind me to the west of the station that heads through to Manchester, with the line to the right of me, leaving the line heading through Ashton and my part in junction to join at Manchester Victoria and meet up with the Golden Railway line. With the other line just behind me to the left that branches off to Guy Bridge towards Manchester Piccadilly. On platform 4 at Stalybridge is the station's renowned buffet, which unfortunately didn't open until later in the day because who's going to want a pint at 10 o'clock in the morning? If I were to have a pint right now, well, let's just say this video could get off the rails quite quickly. Well, not literally, but you wouldn't want me telling you drunk facts at Ashton, wouldn't you? Actually, if you want to see that video, let me know. It is also one of the few stations to retain its original buffet. Although, like the case back at Dewsbury in episode 1, you can't really drink on the platforms. Well, you wouldn't want to hear your train cancelled because of drunk people on the tracks at Stalybridge, wouldn't you? Well, at least you get some compensation. Anyway, the 1997 refurbishment won awards from Canberra and English Heritage, and at the 2008 Tameside Food and Drinks Festival, it was voted the best bar. Following the refurbishment in 2012, the Lord following some further refurbishments in 2012, Royal Pandry of Stalybridge, who often uses the buffet bar and contributed over half of the £6,000 cost, unveiled a plaque to mark the works being completed, which probably cost £3,000. Let's be truthfully honest there. But if you pop inside, you'll obviously find some beer and some old vintage signage from stations along the line, such as Ashton and Charlestown, which is our next stop, and Mossley, which we covered in episode 2 part 2. Tell you what, you get all the weather here at Stalybridge. You get rain, you get sun, we just need snow and wind. Actually, a week before I actually filmed this, there were a tornado in Stalybridge. I think Stalybridge is just the epicentre of all weather events this year. Who knows? The station was refurbished between 2007 and 2012 with a new entrance on Market Street, raising the platforms, a new bay platform 5 and a remodelling the junction behind me here you can see. Well, technically the junction you see now behind me is actually the second iteration as it was remodelled back in February, which allows trains to go through Stalybridge a little bit quicker. Also at the time they installed the new overhead cantilever structures which allow for overhead power to be taken from trains. You know, basically electric trains, you know, that sort of stuff. I'm not going to bore you with the details of that, but this is, well, I would say they're using them, but they're not using them yet. Now it's time for some quick fire secrets and facts, otherwise this video is going to be 10 hours long. On the Market Street entrance there is an old Transport for Greater Manchester logo, which is now known as the B Network. That whole naming saga can be its own video. On the station building there is an old GMPTE Greater Manchester Passenger Transport Executive logo. On the main doors there is an old First Transpennine Express logo from around 2004, which was phased out in around 2015. And yes, there's a Christmas tree. Sorry if you're watching this in summer. The station has ramps to all platforms, which makes it step free. But because of the gradient of the ramps is quite steep, it's not ideally safe, hence why there's lifts. And finally on platform 4 is an old station clock appropriately placed next to the buffet bar. If there's anything I've missed, leave a comment down below and let me know. And if you haven't already done so, why not give this video a like and hit that subscribe button while you're at it. So that's it for Stalybridge. We're going to head to our next stop, which is Ashton-Under-Lyne.
This is the northern service to Southport. The next stop is Ashton-Under-Lyne.
Welcome to Ashton-Under-Lyne station, 2 to 3 minutes west of Stalybridge, and is possibly the shortest distance between two stations in this series so far. Now we're on the penultimate station before we hit the Manchester stations area, which includes Manchester Victoria, Deansgate, Manchester Oxford Road and Manchester Piccadilly, which means we're nearly at the end of the series, which is not had a 6-month gap between episode 2 and episode 3, but we're not going to talk about that. But anyway, let's explore some of the history and secrets of Charlestown station. No, that's not Charlestown, it's Ashton-Under-Lyne. When this station first opened, it was Charlestown. It wouldn't become Ashton-Under-Lyne until 1966. And let me just keep it simple and sweet, otherwise we're going to go into a messy rabbit hole who will own the station. Many companies owned the stations up until 1980. It was sectorised by GMPT, which is Greater Manchester Transport Executive, and then would be privatised in the 90s and is Northern owned as we see it today. So at the western end of Ashton-Under-Lyne station, and walking backwards here, this could go potentially very wrong here. You can see this section of unused platform just behind me here. That was used, but obviously no longer used. Which is not the only place in Manchester you can see stuff like this. It is also the case on the Bury branch of the Manchester Metrolink between Bury and Victoria, as that was the first line that was converted from heavy rail, more commonly known as National Rail, to the Metrolink in 1992. As the trams take up less platform spaces than the trams need to, they actually took some of the platform out of use, which is very noticeable at some stations there. The Ashton area once had 3 stations: Charlestown, which is now Ashton-Under-Lyne and is the only surviving station; Park Parade was located on what is the Stockport Stalybridge line; and finally Holden Road, which was located across from the nearby Charlestown station on a line that ran from Guybridge to Oldham. However, Guybridge was also known as Ashton and Hooley Hill in its earliest years. Station artwork. Is this an art gallery or is this a station? Also at Ashton there is the bus interchange over the road and the start of the Ashton to Eccles line via Piccadilly and Media City on the Manchester Metrolink network, which was extended up to Ashton from Droylsden back in 2013. Ashton also has a ramp and lifts, which is in the exact same setup as at Stalybridge. The station once had a large booking hall, which is now where the car park is, and a substantial canopy, but as you can see there's not really much left of the old station. I've just noticed something here at Ashton-Under-Lyne, just more specifically here. There's a blue warehouse. I have no idea what that could possibly be. From what I've heard, certain type of people ain't going there on a Saturday, but I have no idea what could possibly upset them sort of people at this blue warehouse. I don't even know what they sell there. Is it even a shop or is it just a multi-storey car park? What? Who doesn't like a cheeky IKEA meatball? So meatballs aside, I'm back here at Ashton-Under-Lyne station and about to get the next train to Manchester Victoria. So we've run out of time here in episode 3 part 1, so you'll have to stay tuned for episode 3 part 2, which will be focusing on Manchester Victoria. So until next time, see ya!